We dig into the basics of science-based spirituality with a short study of consciousness. People of faith should consider the meaning of consciousness because humans wonder what it means to exist. Historically, we answer the question, why am I here, with because God or the gods created me. That answer was sufficient for thousands of years, but it leaves people raised in an era of space exploration, nanotechnology, and quantum entanglement unsatisfied. For many decades, I've reconciled my belief in God with contemporary understandings of the universe by seeing God in scientific discovery, most notably in the study of consciousness. The concept of consciousness is foundational to a science-based spirituality, and potentially to any understanding of reality, but it is a mind bender. This isn't an easy exploration, folks. There's debate even over what the word consciousness means. So, what is consciousness and why does it exist? Well, that's what both scientists and philosophers somewhat sardonically refer to as the hard problem. But as early as 500 BCE, the ancient Greeks, ever ahead of the curve, used the word consciousness to describe the foundation of reality. They were riffing on the ancient idea of panpsychism, the concept that a universal mind of some sort is responsible for reality. It's one of humankind's earliest references to a conscious universe. Later, Plato took the Zeus out of God by claiming the universe is a living thing, which is eternal, perfect, infinite, and intelligent. He then goes on to say that all embodied forms are part of the living thing. In fact, it encompasses them and it understands them. I think Plato well describes a conscious, aware universe, just of the type being discovered today. Now, modern philosophers began pondering consciousness in the 1600s when René Descartes concluded that humans are undeniably conscious. Yet, this fact is different from other scientific facts which rely on physical proofs. To this day, there is no physical proof of consciousness. Thus, for Descartes and the sciences that would develop based on his theories, consciousness is not physical, yet we are indeed conscious. This realization led Descartes to the dualistic conclusion that consciousness resides and is created in our minds, yet is somehow separate from our minds. Until recently, modern neuroscientists believed the same thing, that our brains were consciousness generators, perhaps even reality generators. But new research implies that the brain is not a reality generator, but a finely tuned receiver. The brain isn't creating consciousness. Consciousness appears to be telling the brain how to perceive reality, even as the brain is created from consciousness. Just think about that for a moment. Today, there are two schools of thought. Consciousness is either a process created in the brain, as Descartes suggested, or consciousness is a physical thing, an unseen force akin to magnetism and gravity. If consciousness is a process, then it's merely a function the brain uses to define reality. The still mega controversial contemporary theory, though, is that conscious is not a manifestation of the brain, but is indeed a physical force as powerful and natural as gravity, electricity, and magnetism. Often, philosophers like Plato intuitively sense what science later proves. A recent neuroscience paper theorizes that the more complex a system is, the more consciousness it exhibits. At a certain level of consciousness, an object becomes self-aware. Humans are very complex systems, therefore we are self-aware. Rocks, they're not so complex, so they're not self-aware. But there's still consciousness at work there at some level. And I understand that's difficult to comprehend, and it's going to be challenging to prove until somebody actually comes up with a way to measure consciousness. However, the idea that the more complex a system is, the more consciousness exhibits really makes sense. And if it is true, well, then I ask you to consider that the universe is a ludicrously complex system. Therefore, it must be extremely conscious, and it is most definitely self-aware. So, do we consider that God? Awakening to God as the underlying aware consciousness of reality, instead of as a super being living in a gated community in heaven, reveals that we are undeniably entwined, not only with the absolute being of God, but also with one another. Every single human being on the planet, all 8 billion of us, is a manifestation of Plato's living thing. We are, each of us, an example of the diversity of the Abrahamic Yahweh, of God, of the conscious universe, of the fundamental string, whatever words we need to describe what we intuitively know. The universe is not a cold, hard, empty, uncaring place. It is intelligent, alive, and filled with intimacy for its creations. Of course, this is in no way scientific fact, but the implications of consciousness theory are profound. Every animal, every plant, every inanimate object is created from God, from universal consciousness. So we are intimately part of and never separate from the natural world. And we are intimately part of one another. I'm urging us to think of the universe as conscious and as everything in reality as part of God consciousness, because I believe it's more difficult for us to destroy the planet, judge people based on the color of their skin, or do anything to harm another creature when we fully understand that every tree in the disappearing rainforest, every brother and sister of every ethnicity and belief and sexual persuasion, every drop of life-giving water and molecule of oxygen are quite literally living, breathing parts of a universe that is well aware of our existence. And we can be equally aware of the conscious universe and profoundly experience reality not for a God who needs worship and obedience, but as a beloved aspect of the astounding diversity of a creative consciousness who is intrinsically and intimately part of our being. Amen. So our question today, how does the idea of a conscious universe affect your spiritual beliefs and practices? How does the idea of a conscious universe affect your spiritual beliefs and practices? Think about that for a few minutes. I'll send you into just a couple of breakout rooms today for you to chat with each other. If you want to take some notes while you're in the breakout rooms so that we can share our thoughts and ideas when we get back together, that would be much appreciated. I hope you enjoy your discussion about the conscious universe. We'll see you all in about 10 minutes.